Good afternoon. Welcome to our annual members meeting 2019. Could I please now ask you to begin to take your seats as we would like to start the afternoon's presentations. Please take your seats now, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, can we please make sure you are all now seated as we would like to start the presentations. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Does everyone take their seat? And we'll begin. Well, welcome. My name is David Astley. I'm the Trust Chair, and if I may just make a few announcements just to start off this afternoon's gathering. First of all, just a warm welcome to a range of people that are here today, including our Foundation Trust members and our staff and volunteers. And extra thanks to those who man these splendid exhibitions and stands around the meeting today, which really starts to give a flavour of the very, very important work that we do. Clearly, we've represented our patients here as well, and they are particularly welcome. I'm not sure whether Councillor Jackie Love is actually here, but just in case she makes it, the Deputy Mayor for Uckfield Town Council is expected to be here. We've represented from our commissioners. They're the people who place contracts with SECAmb on behalf of our public, local patient participation group members, representatives from the key local stakeholder organisations, and local organisations with stands at the events. And so a wide range of organisations here, from the emergency rider blood bikes, so particularly welcome to them who do fantastic work, Health Watch, our 999 partners in East Sussex Fire Service, and Sussex Police, with our Retirement Association. Just remember we have a history, and many staff who still keep a keen interest in the service, even though they may well are now in glorious retirement. They still remain a passionate interest in what we do, and particularly Kent Surrey and Sussex Air Ambulance. And that, if we've omitted anybody or organisations, please accept our apologies, but that gives a flavour of the wide-ranging stakeholders, colleagues that we work with in the ambulance service, and it's a pleasure to welcome you all. There are some housekeeping announcements as well. We have a speech-to-text typist available for anyone who needs it, so if you need that, please make sure you're sitting near to where you can see the screen. The usual facilities at the back there in terms of washrooms, etc., including accessible toilets, which are just outside the room. We've got fire exits, plenty of them, and if the fire alarm goes, you need to leave in an orderly manner because there are no rehearsals planned today, so it will be the real thing. We're also being live streamed to the World Wide Web via our YouTube channel, so we bid them a particular welcome. We hope our public are watching in their thousands out there on YouTube. If not, I'm sure we'll all look again tonight when we get home. So I hope you've had time as well to look around the exhibition and again see the wide range of work that we do. And if there's anyone here who's not a member, because if you can breathe and you're available, we'd like you as a member, please. If you live in Kent, Surrey and Sussex, it's really important you get involved, and a number of the colleagues will be in the rooms. Our membership office is here. We'd like to sign you up, please, because it's important you're part of it. The members vote in the governors appoint me and the non-executive directors, so it is democratic accountability in the round, and it's something which we take very, very seriously. And just finally, just in terms of my role as chairman, my job is to chair the board. Our chief executive, Philip Astle, runs the organisation, and with the executive team, I have the privilege of chairing the board and also chairing our council of governors. And I've been involved now almost actually 12 months virtually to the day since I came to SECAmb just after this meeting last year. And I have to say, in the last 12 months, it's been for me an absolute privilege to work in this organisation and be part of this organisation and support those that give the frontline care, be it either our controls or within our ambulance service, but also there's many support staff in the organisation who, without them, we couldn't do the day job. And the day job is to care for our patients and make sure we get the right resources to the right place. So it is very much about a bit of teamwork, and that's what's impressed me as chair. I spent my career in the NHS, as an executive and recently as a non-executive. I was aware of ambulance services. I dealt with ambulance services on many occasions, but being within one is an absolute privilege. And I think particularly in this time of change in society, the ambulance service is in a very unique position of being able where that last phone call, where the 999 response, we answer the phone 24/7, we arrive, and we provide a very professional response to whoever needs us and whatever their state of need. And that's something which has really come across to me and is hugely valued by the board and my colleagues on the board. So I hope you enjoyed this afternoon. Opportunity for us to showcase what we do. And to get us in that frame of mind, we've got a short video now just to just give you a flavour of the human touch of what we do in SECAmb, and then we get into some other presentations as well as part of the formal annual general meeting. So we'll let the presentation start.
When I see ambulances now, I have to say I do wonder like what's going on inside the ambulance, what's happened to the person that's in there. I think you kind of don't really think about that before it's happened to you. You just kind of see an ambulance and you think, oh, poor person in there. But you know, when you've actually been inside one yourself, rushed off to hospital in one, it's yeah, it does make you think, it does make you wonder.
I got up and I said, I don't feel quite right,
yeah,
and I went to go off and get some water, and next thing I know, I'm waking up in a hospital a week and a half later.
We went camping, we were at a campsite, and just had something to eat. Craig went off to do some washing up, which I didn't actually realise he'd gone. Heard a noise and some commotion going on, and then somebody ran past us and said, someone's over there on the ground. Is he with you? And I said no. Looked around, saw Craig wasn't there. Went around the corner and saw that it was Craig lying on the floor, and obviously lots of people around him and lots of stuff going on.
Then we had to call the ambulance.
Well, I think somebody already did that, didn't they? So obviously I ran over and left the children playing with some others round the corner. I think by that stage Susie and Lindsay had just come over, and we didn't really know what had happened to Craig, and he was lying on the floor and he was looking, well, he wasn't conscious, went quite blue and realised that he wasn't breathing, at which stage Lindsay and Susie took over.
When I saw this incident was referred to on social media, I can't remember what it was, it might have been Facebook or something like that. Just listening to or reading the details, it sounded more than just an average resuscitation. So, for example, I understand that when the gentleman collapsed, he actually landed on his chin. So he had a fractured jaw, and I know from my own operational experience that managing an airway with a fractured jaw is very, very difficult. If you think about it, she was completely disengaged from the ambulance service. She was on leave, she was switched off, she was recharging her batteries, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, she's presented with a life-threatening emergency. She hasn't got an ambulance full of equipment. She hasn't had 10 minutes warning to get your head together like you do on a call. She's just suddenly presented with it, and her friend Lindsay is just suddenly presented with this sudden cardiac arrest.
If they hadn't been there, I don't think we'd have had the outcome that we did.
It was a succession of fortuitous moments. What happened to me could have happened at any point during that day. It could have happened while I was driving to the campsite.
In the swimming pool?
Yeah, it just happened that I went down and they were nearby.
Honestly, we can't thank them enough. I've actually, I kind of kept in touch with Susie because she took my number on the night that it happened, and she's been in touch with us so much. She was so genuinely interested in finding out about Craig afterwards. Like they're just both, I don't even know, I can't put it into words. Like,
thank you doesn't seem enough.
Yeah.
It doesn't, you say thank you when someone holds the door open for you. When someone saves your life, thank you doesn't really cover it.
It's really important that we listen to the views of our staff and our patients. It's fantastic to hear all the positives reports that we get from patients about how well they've been treated. But it's also really important that we learn lessons from where we don't get it quite so right. So it's a really important source of feedback. Also, when our staff tell us that things aren't working as well as they should be, then we need to take action as a board to put that right. So I'm really impressed by what I've seen at SECAmb so far, and I'm really looking forward to engaging with our staff and our patients over the coming months.
Well, I hope that really does set the scene. It shows that SECAmb staff, even on holiday, are never off duty, and the level of professionalism that was shown was absolutely tremendous in that. And we have a similar video at the start of every board meeting, a patient story. Something's gone well, perhaps something's not gone so well, to get the board in the right frame of mind. But I will commend colleagues to people here today to look at our YouTube channel. We do put those small video clips on the internet for people to reflect on, and I think they do capture very well, I think, the work that we do and the sensitivity that we do. So we've now got, as we're in our annual general meeting, the number of reports that we need to present. So I'm going to ask David Hammond to come, our Chief Finance Officer, to come and present the annual accounts to you. After that, other colleagues will come in turn and they'll introduce themselves as they get onto the stage. So, David, the floor is yours.
So, good afternoon, everybody. I'm David Hammond. I'm the Executive Director of Finance and Corporate Services, and it gives me great pleasure today to present the annual financial statements. And I'm sure you'll be pleased to know they've only given me 5 minutes, so I will zoom through, but hopefully allow you to understand where we're at. So these are the areas that we'll cover briefly. Within our annual report document, which hopefully you've all picked up, and if not, there's several on the table at the front. You'll be pleased to know all 40-something pages of the accounts are at the back with the auditor's report and everything else, and I'm sure you'll all read them in detail, but they are there if you want to see some more detail. So, just to set the scene a little bit, obviously we know that 2018-19 was another busy year. I've worked for SECAmb for around 12 years in total, I think, and I can't remember one that wasn't a busy year. But it was a year where I think a lot of things came to fruition. So we've had some challenging years in the past, we've had some challenges financially, we've had some challenges in terms of investment and just bringing things up to date. And I think 2018-19 was where we started to see some of those things happen tangibly. And I'll run through a few of these things as we go through. I think it's also important to sort of say, why is it, what relevance really is finance when we're a patient-facing organisation, and our key aim is to deliver the best patient care that we can and get to people as quickly as we can. But it's really, really important, actually. It's really important that we maximise the resources that we have, that where we have a responsibility to manage these funds as appropriately as we can, but not for a benefit to the bottom line or for a shareholder or something like that, but actually to make sure that ongoing, year after year, we can continue to provide the right tools and equipment and infrastructure for our staff and volunteers to go out there and do what they need to do for the public that we serve. So, how did we actually do? Well, we delivered a surplus of 2.4 million, so that's positive. However, so there's always a positive and a negative. However, in order to deliver that position, we did receive about £4.4 million worth of centrally allocated funding, which we knew we would at the beginning of the year, should we hit our targets. So when you really look at where we are, we have an underlying deficit position of £2 million. So that means we spend £2 million more than we get in on a recurrent basis. And that's really important to remember as we go forward. So every single decision we make is not because, again, we're penny pinching or whatever, but actually what we deliver costs more than we get in, certainly in 18-19, and I'll come on to why that's changing slightly. Importantly, it's worth mentioning our cash balance. So this is the working capital, as we call it, which basically pays the wages every month, which clearly we need to do. And that's in a very healthy position at the end of last year with about £24 million in the bank. That also pays for a lot of the investments in our infrastructure. So whilst it looks like a big number, we also have a lot of schemes and allocations against that number already going, such as make-ready developments, future ambulances which are in build, and so on and so forth. There's a horrible little acronym called CIP, which is Cost Improvement Programme, which everybody hates when my finance team walk around the building and say, right, we need to, what are your SIPs for this year? But actually, it's really important. So if I badge it slightly differently, SIPs is a term we have to use, it's a national term. But actually, SIPs is effectively efficiency and reduction of waste. So what do we do that we do twice? What do we duplicate? What do we do that we don't really need to do? Because every penny that we spend on doing something that we don't need to do could be spent elsewhere. And that's the key thing. So SIPs, horrible phrase, horrible word, nobody likes it, but fundamentally it's really important that we continue to get more efficient and get better, because we all know that the resources that come down to us are continually constrained year after year. And I'll come on to a bit more about this, but just as a flavour, I mean, last year we invested £13 million into various different projects. I'll come on to what they were a bit later, but also I just put that one in because obviously the cash balance looks very healthy there, and it's not quite, we're not quite as rich as that. So, I won't spend too long on these, but I just wanted to point out on the left-hand side. So our income, our operating income is last year was 228 million, and our expenditure about 226, and this is for the operation. And the year before, our income was 214. So you can see the growth between 214 and 228. That's a significant improvement in our income. And this is where some of our new investment has come from, via our commissioning colleagues, via the health economy. And I think that's in recognition of the journey that SECAmb has been on. And we know from the CQC as a good rated trust, and we're on a journey to become an outstanding rated trust. And so it's really, really important that we are paid for the services that we have to provide. I'm hoping to be standing here next year, I'll pause at that point, and to be able to tell you that that number has significantly increased again. So, what do we actually spend the money on? Simplifying this slightly, the first three on the left-hand side, 83, 6 and 9, hopefully comes to 92. So 92% of our income is funded by our commissioners. It delivers 999, 111, and our heart services, and you can see the heart team have been outside, and hopefully you've been out and seen their equipment and what they do out there. The other things are funding for things like education and some service development type stuff via Sequin and so forth. And then if we look at the right side of the slide, it pretty much says that of that 92% we get commissioned for plus some other bits, we spend 100% of that on things which deliver patient care. And I think that's also really important because that's what we're here to do. We're not here to have huge support back office functions, and they only work if they are doing something which delivers something extra to the front line. So, next slide, rattling through. Statement of financial position. In old money, our balance sheet. And this basically tells us what the health of our organisation is. It shows us what our asset base is, both our long-term assets and our current positions around cash and how many people owe us money and how many people we owe money. As you can see, it's a fairly strong position. I think many NHS trusts would be very happy to have a balance sheet that looks something like this. And you can see it's improving year on year as well. I won't dwell too much on the detail on those. If anybody does want to talk finance, I'll be around, so come and find me. So what did we spend the money on? So I referred to £13 million at the beginning, and I've showed you the balance sheet and everything else. So these are just a few of the things that we did in 18-19. We introduced a brand new dispatch system into our 111 and 999 call centres. We introduced new telephony across the board, which has improved response times to patients and the experience of the staff within our control centres. We have started another Make Ready centre, this time in Brighton, which is continuing in build this year. And I know the stalls around the side, there's some information on those. We've ordered a significant amount of vehicles. In 18-19, this represents the vehicles that were delivered in that year, but there is a pipeline of new fleet which continues to come in and replace some of our older vehicles, and we are very aware that we need to do this better, and it's certainly in the plans going forward. And you can see we had a £10 million plus increase in our income from commissioners, which again helps us to deliver our performance and our patient care. So I will leave you there, and I just thought I'd put up a couple of quotes, I won't read them out or spend too long on them, from the CQC about the way that we manage money within SECAmb and how we have overall stewardship of our finances. So thank you very much for listening to me, and I thank the Council of Governors in receiving the accounts.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Fiona Moore. I'm the Executive Medical Director of SECAmb, and it's my great privilege to do a bit of a look back over the last year. So what I'm going to talk about is a little bit about leadership, a bit about performance, a bit about where we are with the CQC and the journey that the Trust has been on, a little bit about improving SECAmb as a place to work, a bit, as you would perhaps expect, around patient care, a bit about NHS 111 and how important that is to our overall strategy, and investment in the Trust, and some of that David's already covered. But first of all, in adding to David's welcome, I would like to point out a particular welcome to the Retirement Association. Now, Ken Smith, who is in the audience, reminded me that he first met me when I was a casualty officer a very long time ago at University College Hospital in London. I would like to remind him that it was nice of him to park his horse-drawn ambulance outside my hospital at that stage. Thanks, Ken. Great to see you. Well, that depends. Okay, so in terms of leadership of the Trust over the past year, we lost our previous chair, Richard Foster, who left the Trust in April 2018 for health reasons, and Graham Colbert stepped into the breach and very ably led the Trust until David Astley joined us back in August last year. So as David said, he's been with us for a year now. Darren, our Chief Executive, was attracted to go further north, nearer to his home, and left us at the end of March to join the North West Ambulance Service. And on the 28th of March, we announced the appointment of our new Chief Executive, Philip Astle, who will be talking to you shortly. And I had the privilege of acting as interim Chief Executive between the time that Darren left and the 1st of September. So a little bit about performance. What I'm showing on this slide is category 1, 2, and 3. And I think if the pointer will work, just category 1, which is our most seriously ill and injured patients, our target there is a mean of 7 minutes. And we were there or thereabouts. We never hit the target, but we were under 8 minutes for the whole of the last year. And we hit our target for the 90th centile. So in terms of providing a safe service to our patients, we did really pretty well. Equally, for category 2, although we saw some lengthening of our mean response time, we managed our overall 90th centile. The area which was particularly problematic was our response to our Category 3 patients, which is approximately 40% of our patients. And there you can see that we actually saw a considerable lengthening in our response times to what is really an unacceptable time of over 4 hours by the end of quarter 4. And Philip will tell you how we've done this year. It's certainly much better. And that, I think, represents some of the quality of the service that we provide. Then, if you look at our Emergency Operations Centre, we saw a significant increase in the number of calls received over the year, extending the number of calls extending over each quarter. However, we improved our response times to those calls and were at just over 90% by the 4th quartile. We've been operating the 111 system in Kent, Medway and Sussex on an interim basis, and we've seen an improvement in our call answering performance, but still have a way to go in terms of the combined clinical KPIs. David has already talked a lot about the finance. The bit that my eye is always drawn to is the surplus, as you would imagine. And that's about my entire knowledge of finance. We measure our clinical performance in a number of different ways. I don't think they're entirely satisfactory because there is a lot of variation month to month. But the areas that I would highlight are the outcomes for cardiac arrest, which saw probably a gradual improvement in survival to discharge. I'm not so interested in the return of spontaneous circulation, although it is an important marker. But what people really want to know is whether their relative or loved one is going to be discharged from hospital alive, not whether they managed to get to hospital with a beating heart. Then a lot of work to do still on stroke, where we've seen an increase in the time in getting to stroke units, but we don't yet have designated stroke units in all parts of our patch. So still quite a lot of work to do to make sure that stroke patients get to the most appropriate centre. And then outcome from STEMI, these are areas which we still need to improve in trying to increase our time to get patients in to the appropriate centres where they can undergo percutaneous coronary angiography where appropriate. This is a good news slide, and those of you who attended the Council of Governors will already have seen it, so Joe, thanks for stealing my thunder on this one. However, of course, it is actually your thunder, not mine, because it's the performance of operations in getting to the sickest patients. So this is looking at the performance for patients who are in cardiorespiratory arrest, where time is absolutely critical. And what we saw over the last year was a gradual improvement. In other words, this line is going down, that's better. So we've improved our response to patients in cardiorespiratory arrest from 7 minutes to 6 minutes. That's important because for every additional minute, there's a 10% reduction in life expectancy. So you will remember that we started off in a rather bad place with the CQC, and back in 2016 we had a very, very poor report. In 2018 we had a better report. We were requiring improvement but remained in special measures. And so the Trust has worked incredibly hard across both operations and support services to drive up the quality of the service that we provide, and you can see that this has resulted in a much better result from the inspection carried out in July and August this year. So if you look at the lower graph there, you can see that it's good across the board with some areas of outstanding practice. So this is really good news for a trust, and I can't say how proud I was when this report came out. And that pride is absolutely mirrored by these photographs, which is, of course, Pride last year down at Brighton. And you can see the starring role taken by our head of information governance, who was a leading player in that. But you can see that everybody is very happy. And I think that captures the pride that our staff have in working for this organisation. In terms of making SECAmb a better place to work, we saw a much better response rate to the staff survey in the last year, and we've seen improvements in pretty much every area. So if you look at the graph there, the lighter blue bars are the previous year, so 2017, and the darker blue bars 2018. So improvement in pretty much every area there. However, still a lot to do. We still compare unfavourably with many other ambulance trusts and certainly unfavourably with many other acute trusts. So we are still working on embedding the values within the organisation, trying to absolutely make sure that bullying and harassment is not an issue within the trust, having a consistent offering at the induction so that everybody knows what is expected of them and what they can expect of the trust. Improving our leadership at all levels throughout the trust and making some of the processes better. So working very hard with our HR department to bring some of the processes into the 21st century. Nice to see that Kent, Surrey, Sussex Air Ambulance Trust came to support us today. They are a phenomenal organisation and they're now flying off to do some even better work. In terms of improving patient care, we've had a real focus on improving patient care over the past year. Things like investing in new equipment. So all our staff, all our paramedics now use the iGel, which is an advanced airway, which is quicker and easier to place than an endotracheal tube. We've invested in our critical care paramedics by providing new, smaller and more robust ultrasound machines, and we will be issuing personal issue kit to all our staff. We've looked at some new ways of working, in particular the rotational paramedic practitioner pilot, the Manchester triage system for enhancing triage in our clinicians in the control rooms, and the long waiting vehicles, which the CQC kept referring to as the LERV vehicle, but is a great initiative started out in Brighton so that we tackle the waits for the very longest waiting patient. We've been more outward looking as a trust over the past year with new initiatives like working with the midwife advice line in EOC, the joint response units with the police in Kent and Surrey. And we've had a focus on getting back to basics and getting the basics right. So updating the training of our CFRs, improving a focus on cardiac arrest survival with our cardiac analyst appointed so that we can more routinely get defib downloads and discuss those with the crews to drive up cardiac arrest survival. And we did a lot of work on planning key skills, which is being delivered this year. David's already talked a lot about the investment in SECAmb. What I would highlight is this has been about improving patients' experience and about improving the experience of our staff, about increasing recruitment, so recruiting an additional 768 staff to frontline roles, to improving our fleet and getting in 85 new Mercedes vehicles, but also a number of non-emergency transport vehicles. And working very hard with our colleagues in the acute hospitals to reduce hospital handover delay, which of course it makes us more efficient, but actually contributes a lot of hours back into operations because it means that ambulances are not parked outside an emergency department while we have patients waiting in the community. NHS 111 is an important part of our strategy because it ties together the 999 and the 111 service and will allow us to more seamlessly direct patients who do not necessarily need to go to the emergency department to more appropriate routes of care. So we took over the interim service in Kent, Medway and Sussex from the 1st of April last year. From the 1st of April in 2019, end of March 2019, and we then submitted a bid for the substantive service to start in 2020, and we've been successful in winning that bid. And what that means is that we will be working with a partner, IC24, to deliver both an integrated 111 and a clinical advisory service, which will allow us to have access to clinicians in a number of disciplines so that we can provide the best care to our patients. Of course, things won't always go smoothly, will they? And who knows what's going to happen on the 31st of October, but we have to prepare for an EU exit at that point. And the implications for Kent in particular are significant, and therefore the implications for us in terms of getting to our patients, staff getting into work, being able to supply our stations with medicines and with consumables will be a real challenge. So we've worked very closely with partners in Kent, but also nationally and with other colleagues in the other 10 ambulance services to ensure that should we need it, we have access to mutual aid to support both the service and our patients in the event of the short Straits crossing becoming snarled up. So, thank you for your attention. I just draw your attention to the people who keep my head, well, actually pretty much dislocate my shoulders every day. So, thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Philip, and I am the new Chief Executive. It would be completely wrong of me to say anything before I say thank you to the person that's just been speaking to us. Fiona has done 2 jobs for the last 6 months, and she's done them both absolutely brilliantly. I haven't heard anybody in the Trust have anything bad to say about her or what she's done. So I'd just like us all to give her a round of applause. And I'm delighted that she's staying on the team because where would we be without her? So, I thought it would be useful for members of the Trust to hear a little bit about me. If you don't want to, you can go to sleep now. My journey, my leadership journey, and how did I end up here? I started as a 17-year-old by joining the British Army. I joined the 22nd of Foot, the Cheshire Regiment, and I served with them for 30 years and did all the things you would expect a frontline soldier to do, as well as doing some of the strategic things. Ended up running my last operational tour was running the strategy and planning for the whole of Afghanistan, and my last full-time job was running the training estate, the training agency that trained 10,000 soldiers a year. So I left because I wanted to have a second career, and so I left the army early, and I joined an organisation called Border Force. I was the first person in Border Force. It was an amalgamation of 3 different parts of the Home Office, a bit of policing, anti-terrorist policing at ports, the Immigration Service, and Customs and Exercise. My job was to meld them together and create a cohesive whole out of it, which I think we did reasonably successfully and reasonably quickly. Because of that, and when everyone thought the Olympics was about to go wrong, I was asked to go and plan the security elements of the Olympics by the Home Office. And I did that for 2.5 years. We planned 3,000 scenarios. Each scenario had 4 plans. That's 1 main plan and 3 layers of reserve plans. And we tested them all across government. 1,012 of them happened, and nobody noticed. So it was a really exciting thing to do. When I was asked to go and do the same for Rio, I thought, Rio? Fantastic. But 4 years planning a 4-week event, probably that's too much to ask of anyone. So I moved back to the Home Office, did a bit of counter-terrorism, and then the Passport Agency had a little blip a few summers ago, people will remember, when people couldn't get their passports to go on holiday and all that sort of stuff. So Theresa May asked me to go and fix that. So I ran the Passport Agency for a year and a bit before joining a company called Menzies. John Menzies provide airport services. Basically everything that happens at an airport, at most airports, apart from flying the plane, is done by a company called either Menzies or Swissport, something like that. I ran the UK operation for a 1.5 years. Again, it was a focus on fixing something that was broken. And at that point, I thought I'd been in security too long, and I wanted to go somewhere where I would meet people who were doing something really, really important, and who worked in a positive and caring environment. I couldn't think of anything better than the ambulance service. I couldn't get a job at SECAmb at the time, so I had to go to SCAS. Anyway, that's where I learned how to do ambulance work. And I was so delighted when I got into the ambulance sector because it's such a positive environment. The public love you, and the public trust the ambulance service, and it's really difficult to find an organisation or a part of society that's more loved and forgiven for when we do get things wrong. It's a phenomenal organisation to join, and I'm extremely lucky to have left SCAS in relatively good shape and to come to SECAmb, and I'm the proudest man in the world as I stand here today. So when we put these slides together, I'd probably only been in SECAmb for about 10 days. It's now 20 days. So what do I think? One, you've already heard what I think about Fiona, and she's one of the reasons that we've done so well recently. But really, it's that top line. I've met some of the most dedicated and professional and enthusiastic people in my first 20 days than I could possibly hope to meet. An organisation the size of SECAmb will always have things to do, things that are going well, things that are going badly. But the one thing that no organisation can survive is if they haven't got the right people. SECAmb have got the right people, and I'm delighted to be part of the team. There's a focus on patient care that stands out to me. It's singularly different from my last trust, and it's different in a good way. There's all sorts of areas of focus that I hadn't even thought about in my last trust. So that's a real benefit for me. That's what we're here for. Strong leadership team and getting stronger. I think we made some good appointments recently. And I think that we're on a good journey. But there are an awful lot of the team who are in interim posts, and we need to get that going because it's unsettling for everybody. We're certainly on a journey of improvement. Fiona was just telling us about the CQC report. I was doing some visits before the CQC inspection and visits after the CQC inspection and since I've joined. And it's palpably different since we got that report. The organisation feels like it's easier to breathe. And that's a real benefit, and it gives us the opportunity to take the next steps with much more surety. SECAmb, the CQC did recognise some areas of outstanding performance. They've just gone off the slides, but that's fine. So the Make Ready system is a really good, where it's existed and it's done in the full way that SECAmb plan it. That's really, really good. The medicines management is an order better than I've seen in other trusts as I've been around. And things like the joint response unit, I don't put that there as I think it's the best thing in the world. I think it's a really good example of innovation. And we've got people around the organisation innovating on a daily basis. And that's one example of it. So those are the bits that I wanted to look at. Let's look forward. So my priorities as we go forward is to build on that recent success. So we need to keep the momentum going. We can't all say, we've got a good CQC report and now sit back and relax, because if you do that, we'll go backwards. So we've got to keep leaning forwards and pushing to improve and build on that success. There are obvious areas where we still know that we need to improve. And we're finding new ones every day. And we will continue to do that. We must be brutally honest. Every time we look under a stone and find something that we don't like, we don't put the stone back down and hide it. We keep making sure that we're finding things out that are wrong and we fix them. By doing that and keeping this continuous improvement, that will help us push over the next few years to be moved from good to outstanding. Most importantly in there is how we look after each other. The thing that my leadership tenet is serve to lead. What does that mean? That means that the guys and girls in green in the audience are not here to work for me. I'm here to work for them. My leadership team will be taking that, and that will be reflected all the way through the organisation, so that the people who are treating patients are who we're all here to serve. And if we can all look after each other in that way, and that's sideways, up, down, everybody looking after the people who are most important, then we'll make SECAmb a really great place to be. Recruiting and retaining, we have issues in both, and part of that is about getting the right people. So as we mature and as we perhaps take on different bits of business over the years, we need to continually reassess the sort of people that we want to bring in. Obviously, everybody who works in SECAmb needs to be caring, needs to be good at their job, but the detailed makeup of our teams will change, and we need to make sure that we're doing that with the right staff. All of that, building this compassionate culture, compassionate to each other, compassionate to our patients, and compassionate to everybody else in the organisation. But what we need to add to that compassion is a real confidence and the belief that we can be excellent rather than good. Some immediate priorities. We've still got a long way to go on performance and performance targets, and we've really got to focus on that. That is not the work of months. That is the work of probably in the next couple of years before we'll be able to safely say, if we get it right, we're now safely hitting those response targets and giving our patients the service that they deserve. We have a little issue coming up on the 31st, we think, and if the worst comes to the worst, we need to be ready for that. So we are spending a bit of time at the moment on that without losing sight of our day job. We need to plan for that EU exit worst case scenario. In terms of 111, we've got to not only keep the current service going well, which it is going well. I think there are bits that we can do better, but we've got to be really careful about constructing our plan to take over the new 111 CAS service from April next year. Those of you who were at the meeting this morning heard our HR director give the plans for the HR restructure. It's one area that I don't think we are showing at our best yet, but we do have good plans to fix that, and we owe it to our employees and our colleagues to make sure that those HR systems are working really well. And recruiting and training. We have an issue with our recruiting and training systems and practices, and we have to sort those out. So those are some immediate priorities. But as I say, there is only one priority, and that's our patients. And how do we do that? We do that by having the best people with the best training, the best motivation, and people who are compassionately managed and led and supported. I'm delighted to be here. I think SECAmb is a fantastic organisation, and once again, thank you to the team who have got us in such a good state for me to take over, and I commit to the organisation to being here for as long as you want me.
Hello, my name's Felicity Dennis, and I'm one of the publicly elected governors for Surrey, and I've been in post about 2.5 years. On behalf of the whole council, I'd like to welcome you all here today, and I hope those of you who had the opportunity to join our meeting this morning found it interesting. I'm here to give you a brief overview of the work of the Council of Governors in SECAmb and to talk about the ways that we fulfil our role on behalf of you, the public. I'll highlight some of the areas we focused on last year and then some of our priorities for this year going forward. So first of all, this slide shows you the makeup of the council. As you can see, there's 25 of us. 14 are elected by the members. We're all volunteers from a range of backgrounds and have a wide range of skills and expertise that we bring to the council. Members of the public volunteer to be governors for a range of different reasons. Maybe they were a previous staff member or a volunteer, or perhaps like me, wanted to give something back to the community. We have 4 staff governors and extremely valuable staff voice for us on the council. And we're delighted that we've now have several new appointed governors in the past year. So we have representatives from Age UK, Surrey Police, Sussex Partnership, Sussex Mental Health, County Council representation. All of these people are from stakeholders of SECAmb, and we really value their input. In March this year, we welcomed 11 new governors to the council, and they were all elected by the members, and we said goodbye to a number of long-standing colleagues. What do Council of Governors do? The Council of Governors is part of the Government Foundation Trust concept, which originated in 2004, and it was to make NHS organisations accountable to their communities. So as Council of Governors, we're here to ensure that SECAmb are accountable to the public, staff and their stakeholders. So we've got 2 core functions. We represent our Foundation Trust members and the wide public, and we hold the non-executive directors to account for the performance of the board. And for me, the phrase critical friend offering constructive challenge forms the fundamental part of what I do as a governor. We represent the interests of the people in our communities in Surrey, Sussex and Kent, and we scrutinise trust decisions on your behalf to make sure that they're in your best interests. We have council meetings that are held in public. You can access the papers and the recordings online at the SECAmb website, and we have a number of government committees that help us fulfil our role. We appoint the chair of the trust, and we also appoint non-executive directors, of which there are 7 who currently sit on the SECAmb board, and they bring a wide range of expertise and challenge to the organisation. We regularly have sessions with them. We ask questions, raise concerns. We watch them in action, chairing committees of the board, and appraise their performance annually, and if appropriate, we are able to dismiss them. We have regular meetings with the Trust Chair, David, who you met earlier, and we're able to raise concerns and ensure that those are acted upon. And we also are involved in delivery of the Trust strategy, working with the board. We get out and about to meet members of the public, and we also attend a wide range of Trust forums, such as the Staff Engagement Forum and the Patient Experience Group. So a little look back to what we did in 2018. This slide shows some of the governors out and about at different engagement activities. And I'm just going to list a couple of 2 or 3 areas that the governors have really pursued in the past year on your behalf. So that included the developing workforce strategy and improving the culture within SECAmb. We've asked questions about the integrated urgent care service, the 111, and how that joins up with the out-of-hours service. We've pursued questions on hospital handover programme. That has been a challenging project, but SECAmb have really embraced working with their stakeholders, but it still remains a serious issue for us going forward. We've looked at clinical outcomes for patients, the trust quality indicators, and this is how patients surviving cardiac arrest, stroke and sepsis. We've looked at the trust volunteering strategy and also support and investment in community first responders. And we have asked the Trust challenging questions about their performance on how they're delivering the care to their patients, and put forward queries about how patients in mental health crisis are supported by SECAmb. This slide gives you an overview of some of the numerous events and activities that the governors undertake. The main aim is to look for assurance of things that we're being told at the board and the Council of Governors, and also to get out and about to meet members of the public and also SECAmb staff. I'll just pull out a couple. So attending commissioning events for their patients, so going to Surrey Heartlands, for instance, and also meetings about local stroke services provision. And then we've attended quality account workshops where the Trust agrees its clinical priorities for the year and participate in quality assurance visits at ambulance stations. And I should really just like to take this opportunity to thank SECAmb staff, because when we are involved in working with them, they're very welcoming and inclusive, and really appreciate that, so thank you. I'm now just going to give you a flavour of the things that we've been focusing on for this year. We've been holding the non-executive directors to account in a wide range of areas. A few of those include ensuring that the board takes staff wellbeing seriously and continue to work to improve the culture and working environment for staff and volunteers. We are, of course, delighted about the Care Quality Commission inspection outcome, but I'm really pleased to hear Philip reiterate that that is not the end game, but simply the foundation for the improvement journey going forward, because what we're looking for is those improvements to be embedded right across the Trust, and we will certainly be holding the Trust to account for that on your behalf. We're looking for real improvements in clinical care for patients so that everybody experiencing the best outcome that they can. And we are also seeking that the Trust continues to engage effectively with its key partners in the health and social care economy. You'll know that clinical commissioning groups are joining together. There are multiple pieces of work going on, and it's very challenging for SECAmb in covering such a wide area to fully engage with everybody, and I think that's a challenge that they are rising to, but need to maintain that. And as a Council of Governors, I just want to assure you that we'll continue to prioritise patient care and patient experience. SECAmb is an NHS Foundation trust with more than 10,000 public members, and all staff become members when they join the organisation. So I suppose this is another plug that if you aren't a member, please do join us. And I'd just like to give a little plug as to why you should do that. It's only by involving the patients, public, staff, partners that we can really be confident that we're listening to people and making improvements based on what matters to them. If you are a member, then I would really encourage you to think about becoming a governor and putting yourself forward. We have got elections in the new year, and there's quite a few up for grabs. East Sussex, West Sussex, Kent, Medway, Surrey, and 2 staff governor posts. If you've got about 10 days a year to give, you're interested in your local ambulance service and the NHS, you like reading and analysing interesting information and working with others to help the ambulance service, please think about putting yourselves forward. Information on how to stand in the election will be sent out to members closer to the time, or it'll be on the website. And if you're not a member, please do join us. We really value your input. It is your opportunity to have your say. We all have a view about how we'd like to be treated when we make that 999 phone call, and it's a great chance to impact on that. So finally, I'd like to thank all the governors, including those who have left this year, and all of the volunteers for their commitment and passion to the patients in South East. I'd like to pay extraordinary tribute to the efforts of SECAmb staff for the amazing job they do for us 24/7. And on behalf of the whole Council of Governors, I should like to thank the Trust Board, and in particular the non-executive directors, for working closely with us and enabling us to be an effective voice in the organisation and represent the people of South East Coast. And I should just like to take this opportunity to formally thank the tremendous level of support and unstinting help that we of the governors get from Isabel Allen and Katie Spendiff, two people with whom, without, we would not be able to function. So thank you.
Yeah, it was. Thank you. Do it again while we all go upstairs. Okay, we're sorted. Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon. Sorry for the scare. That wasn't part of it. Thank you very much for having us. My name is Rhiannon Roderick. I'm the OUM for Polegate and Hastings, so the East Sussex Operating Unit, and this is my colleague Rob.
Hi, I'm Rob. I have been with the Trust for about 4 years, working in the Emergency Operations Centre as one of the control room managers. Just this month, moved into learning and organisational development.
So today, myself and Rob will be presenting an interactive 999 experience. It has been produced with a lot of help from our colleagues, and particularly from the East Sussex Operating Unit. So we've got some of the, thank you, we've got some of the team here today to help us with it. There are points within the presentation where audience participation is very much encouraged, but we're not going to pick anybody. So if you don't like talking in front of others, please don't sit there worried. We're not going to pick on you and make you answer. So with that, and hopefully with a bit less volume, we'll go over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Brilliant.
Ambulance services, patient breathing? Yes. And are they conscious? Yeah. And what's the reason for the call, please?
For me, I'm getting some pain in my arm.
Okay, thank you very much. And what's the address, please?
It's number 2.
Yeah.
Halfway Cottages. East Dean Road.
Yeah.
Eastbourne. And that's BN20 OBB.
Thank you very much. And how old are you, please?
I'm 42.
You're 42, thank you very much. Just bear with me. And what's your name, please?
It's Kate.
Kate, thank you. And surname?
Is Smith.
Thank you very much. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ask some questions to carry out an assessment. Not all the questions will seem relevant, but just answer them the best you can. Now, have you been bleeding red blood heavily in the last 2 hours?
No.
Thank you. And can you just touch the skin on your chest, back or tummy, and tell me what temperature you're feeling right now?
I just feel normal.
You feel normal, thank you. And it's your arm that has, did you say?
Yeah.
Thank you. And does the problem only involve your wrist, hand or fingers?
No.
And whereabouts is it that hurts in your arm? Is it all of your arm? Is it your shoulder?
No, it's the upper bit of my arm.
The upper arm?
Yeah.
Thank you. And have you got pain or swelling or both?
Yeah, pain, just pain.
Just pain right now. And does touching the area bring on the pain or make it worse?
Not really, no.
So, what you've heard there, apologies, there's a little bit of a muffling on the speeching. What you've heard there is a 999 call that we receive every day. Now, this lady is calling, complaining of pain in her arm, and every call we make comes into us. We have to make sure that it's triaged to get the appropriate response to any of you that ring unto us. Now, sometimes that will be an ambulance response, sometimes it might be referring you to another service. So we've got a few different options available in terms of kind of timeframes and levels of response. Now, just by a show of hands, based on the information that you've sort of heard, we just want to see what you think this call should get. So with regard to what you've heard so far, just by a show of hands, do any of you think that this deserves a 7-minute response from an ambulance? No. Based on what you've heard, does anyone think 18 minutes? A couple hands dotted around. Based on what you've heard, how about a 2-hour response for an ambulance? One. Couple. Anyone think a 3-hour response from an ambulance? A lot of hands appearing here, okay. And finally, what about a referral to a secondary service or GP service, hospital, things like that? There we go. A lot of hands coming in here. Lovely. A lot of hands coming in here. So we're going to continue on the video, have a listen to the rest of the triage, see what the outcome is, and we'll have a little chat about it in just a minute. The sound does get better.
And have you had either you've had some pain in the last 24 hours? Any crushing or severe aching pain in your chest or abdomen?
No, not crushing pain. It was aching in my chest last night. Sort of my arm into my chest a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Have you had the pain in the last 12 hours? What time did your pain actually start?
Yeah, it was in the last 12 hours, so just about a few hours ago, really. From yesterday, I suppose about 8 hours, 6 hours.
Okay, thank you. So an emergency ambulance is being arranged for you. All right.
So, a little bit of a twist in what we've got. Now, again, as a show of hands, just out of interest, how many of you here have rang 999 and had to go through a triage service? Relative amount of people. Now, what you'll notice is that the pathway system we use does require a lot of questions to go through. The importance being that actually, all the way up until that point, there are a lot of people here, in fact a significant majority, who have referred that to another service. Actually, by you going through those questions and getting that little bit of extra information, what we're actually able to find is that what could just be completely dissociated arm pain is actually potentially related to a cardiac issue due to previous history that she's had before and pain that she's had earlier in the day. And that's why we use a slightly more necessarily complex triage system to make sure that actually what we're delivering for you is the exact care for what you need, not just an assumption based on a few things that we've heard within a space of a couple of minutes. And as we continue on, you'll see a little bit more about what that means in terms of our response.
Do you think it could be linked to a heart problem?
Do you have a heart problem, Kate?
Yeah, I have had in the past a previous heart attack.
A previous heart attack. Okay, thank you. All right. Well, when the crew get there, they can assess and see what they need, what little needs to be done. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you need any GTN spray on tablets at all?
I do, yeah.
You do. Thank you. And have you got that within arm reach right now?
Yeah, I think somewhere I've got it.
Is it right next to you?
No, not right next to me right now.
Right next. Okay, thank you. And is there anybody there that can fetch your medication?
No, at the moment.
No problem.
Hello, my name's Sophia. One of my previous roles was an emergency medical advisor. For this, I took the 999 calls from the public who are suffering from a medical emergency. During these calls, I could give life-saving advice if potentially in a cardiac arrest, and I would go through all the questions, trying to reach the correct disposition and to get them the ambulance if they need it. It's important to stay calm and trying to reassure them and help them until the ambulance arrives.
Now, Kate, if possible, if you can just collect together all of your current medications or a list of medications and any medical records and give them to the crew when they arrive. Also, if you can, just keep an eye out for the ambulance. Are you able to open the door for us?
Yeah, no, I should be able to do that, yeah.
Okay, and if there are any dogs in the property, shut them away. Now, once this call is finished, please don't ring anyone, just in case we need to call you back. And if you do have any symptoms or your condition does get worse, changes, any other concerns, I want you to call us straight back on 999, all right?
Okay, yeah.
Thank you very much, Kate. I'll leave you to take the crew.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Bye.
Hi, Tim. ID 347.
Yes.
This patient seems to have arm pain that looks very cardiac related. Where is your nearest vehicle coming from?
We're going to be about 15 minutes away.
Oh, are there any CRs? Anybody else that we could get in there?
Yeah, we can look to call a community responder.
That'd be fantastic. If we could get them ASAP.
No problem.
Brilliant. Thank you.
So, now we've moved on to the part where we're actually looking at dispatching an ambulance and what's involved in that. Now, one of the big parts of that is a clinical supervisor role. Now, these are the paramedics and nurses and other roles too now recently. We have working in the control room itself. Their job is to advise on medical issues, maybe medical history that some of our call handlers who aren't medically trained won't know about. They're also able to work through the outstanding calls that we have or calls that we're on our way to work out what the higher priorities are. Maybe what they might do is advise on specialist resources. For example, in this instance, they're advising that we could send a community first responder. And they're a really key part in making sure that we maintain kind of clinical safety of all the calls that we have coming into the ambulance service and through the control room.
Incident 347.
Yeah.
I've spoken with a clinician. They'd like a community responder deployed if that's possible.
Okay, I see what I've got.
Thank you.
So, on top of that, resource dispatcher. Now, before I was a control room manager, I used to work in the dispatch function. A really important key part of their role is making sure that the resources that you need get out to you as soon as we're able to. Now, that's not just sending an ambulance to your door. Obviously, we do also have solo response vehicles, so paramedics or technicians in cars that might be able to respond and help the specialist resources like our paramedic practitioners or critical care paramedics, even things like the heart team as well. And just making sure that once we are there, if our paramedics or technicians that are on scene need additional resources, additional equipment or support, that we're able to provide that, give them the advice they need and a link into the control room to be able to get kind of any additional advice that they need during their time while they're with the patients.
Hello, it's Rhiannon calling from the response desk. Just give you some details about the call you're going to. You are going to 2 halfway cottages on East Dean Road. It's come through as an arm pain, but we're thinking that it's cardiac. You're a little bit ahead of the crew, so if you could get there and just give us an update, would be much appreciated. Yeah, fab. Thank you. Thanks very much. Bye.
From the ambulance service. So what's going on today?
I've just started getting this pain under my arm. It's just really uncomfortable. It started last night, sort of round, and just it's all right here.
So it started last night, did it?
A little bit, yeah, and it's just getting worse.
Yeah. I'm just going to do a couple of observations, if that's okay.
Yeah. It's a pain in the arm to stop.
Have you got any previous medical history?
Yeah, I had a heart attack a year ago.
I'm just going to do your blood pressure, Kate, if that's okay. Let's see what's going on. It's just going to go right on your arm. Thank you very much, that's all good. You said you're on some medication, so can you remember what the GP's prescribed you?
Yeah, it was aspirin. I'm on isozole bicarbonate and Vidigrol.
Okay, has he given you a GTN spray to take when you get these types of symptoms?
Yeah.
Do you know where it is?
It'll be in the box in the kitchen.
Okay, let's have a quick look. Hello, my name's Anna Crush. I'm actually the CFR in that video. I moonlight a little bit and work for SECAmb full-time as well. So I've been a community first responder for the last 5 years. We're very much at the forefront of the community. We are their go-to when they are waiting for that ambulance. We not only are there for cardiac arrests and life-saving scenarios, we are there to provide support to our patients that may be on the floor waiting for assistance to just get up. It's not always medical, sometimes it's a cup of tea that is needed. We're also there to provide public access defibrillator sessions within our communities. We also look after the hundreds and hundreds of public access defibs that are out there today. So that's essentially what we do. Thank you.
Good luck, found it. So if I give you that and encourage you to take that. So if I get you to take some of these.
You ready to go, Claire? Yeah, have a job. Are you receiving? You got it. Thanks very much, Control. Just to let you know, we have handed our patient over. We are now clear at hospital, ready for another call.
Yeah, that's lovely. Thanks very much for that. We've got a tattoo chest pain in EC, you ready?
Yeah, roger that. Thanks so much. Pass the details. We're en route.
Yeah, they're on the way. Thanks very much. See you come out.
Hi, we're in here.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi there. Morning. My name's Matt and this is Sam. What do we call you?
It's Kate.
Kate. Okay. I was going to have a chat with Hannah about what's happened this morning. That's okay.
So Kate's 42. She's been complaining of chest pain going down her left arm since it happened last night. It's not really got worse or better. It's consistently stayed the same. I've encouraged her to take her own GDN along with some of my aspirin as well. Yeah, and that's where we've got to.
Lovely. Thanks, Hannah. Hi there, my name's Matt. I'm a paramedic and operational team leader at Public Med Ready Centre. I'd just like to have a chat with you about some of the diagnostic and physical assessment skills that our crews can perform. Obviously, before our crews can provide any treatment, have an idea about where they're going to take the patient or who they're going to refer them to, they need to get an idea about what's wrong with the patient, just so we can direct their care in the right direction. Does everyone have any ideas about what they might do for this patient? What sort of assessments they might do? Opening up to the floor. Hands up. Anyone? I'm going to pick on the people in green in a minute. An ECG, yeah, so I've got to be careful how I say this because Professor Chamberlain's here, who taught most of the paramedics ECGs. So yeah, we'll do a heart tracing, which gives us an idea if the pain could be of a cardiac nature. Sir? Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So we'll do a full set of clinical observations, pulse, blood pressure, temperatures, etc. Anyone have any other ideas? So a couple of other things they might do a physical assessment of the arm and shoulder to see if the pain originates from there, and they might have some considerations for some respiratory assessment as well. And then that'll give us an idea about what's wrong with the patient and what we can do to help them. So Kat, do you mind telling me a little bit more about the pain you've got at the moment?
Yeah, it's more in my arm, but I think it was just started, I just don't really know, but it's just so heavy and it's just this pain here.
Okay, so I understand from your history that you've had a heart attack in the past, is that right, a year or so ago?
Yeah, a year ago.
And were the symptoms similar to what you had before?
No, that was very much, I mean, I did have a bit of a heavy feeling, but that was very crushing. It's not like that today.
Okay, so what I suppose we do, Kate, is we're just going to do a few observations on you. We'll do an ECG, take the blood pressure again, and then we can have a chat about how we're going to manage your pain, and then where we're going to go from there, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll get my colleague to do an ECG on you, and some observations.
just before we hear from Sam, one of the best things about working from SECAmb is our no-blame learning culture. And with that in mind, I don't blame Matt for spelling emergency wrong. I don't blame myself or Rob for not noting it. And I don't blame the 6 individual people that we had proofread it for not seeing it. So thanks very much, Sam.
Thanks, Rhiannon. My name's Sam. I am an emergency care support worker working within the East Sussex Operating Unit at Polegate Mate Red Centre. My role involves working on a double-crewed ambulance with a senior clinician, supporting them in operational delivery and patient care.
So the odds are as follows: 76 heart rate, blood pressure of 120/79, SATs of 99% on air, a BM of 6.4, a temperature of 37.1.
Very good. Really nice observations there, Kate. It's all quite reassuring, those numbers, okay?
There you are, mate.
Thank you. So all is pretty reasonable. There's nothing, particularly urgent jumping off of the page at me. There's a couple of changes on your ECG, which are probably from your heart attack a year or so ago. So obviously the crew have gathered quite a lot of information about the patient now. They've done a full set of observations, which are fairly unremarkable, and they've done an ECG, which does show some changes to the patient's heart muscle and the way the electricity travels through the heart, which is probably due to the heart attack before, potentially. I'm going to open it up to the floor again with a show of hands about what you think we should do for this patient. So, option A, hands up if you think we'd leave this patient at home with some advice to take their own medication. Good. Option B, who thinks we should refer this patient back to their own GP or an out-of-hours provider? Okay, a couple of hands there. Finally, who thinks we should convey this patient to the emergency department for further assessment? Lovely, let's see what the crew do. I don't know how many ECGs you had done in the past, but obviously these aren't always 100% definitive. So what we would do is we always advise somebody who has chest pain of a cardiac origin, they've got a history such as yours, to come to the hospital to have a blood test which will confirm whether or not the pain is caused from a cardiac origin. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, no, that sounds sensible, because I'm worried.
Yeah, it'll give you some reassurance as well, especially when you're here on your own, that you are going to be okay and we can get you back home as quickly as possible. Okay.
Hello, my name's Lucy Curtis and I'm a paramedic practitioner, also aka Kate from the film. Made a great recovery thanks to the lovely crew. My role as a paramedic practitioner involves a wide range of skills really, extended skills that we provide, from wound care to respiratory problems, long-term health conditions, complex medical needs, and we are supported in that by we have antibiotics and pain relief, and also we have extensive training in wound care to be able to provide support and at home in the community, which is really important to a lot of our cohort patients, so elderly frail patients, patients with dementia, patients at high risk of infection. If we can try to keep them off hospital, then obviously that's a good thing for us, and that's me.
Hi guys, your paperwork.
Great. Thank you very much.
Do you need me for anything else?
No, that's it. Thanks so much for your help. Really
Perfect.
appreciate it. Have a good day. Take
Cheers,
care.
all the best. Bye.
Happy? When you are. Okay. See you soon.
Thank you very much. We will be around for the next hour or so you can approach us directly for questions, because I know Q&A's up next and I think we're running slightly behind, so hopefully we've put us back on time now. Thank you very much.
Can I just jump in there and just say a massive thank you to you guys for doing that. They did that all off their own bat. They arranged the filming, they storyboarded it, they produced it, they did it all in their own time, and it was blimmin' awesome. So thank you guys.
Yeah, stay here, yeah. Well, right then. The Majesty Thursday night, the weather forecast has just finished. Question time has begun. And what we've got is this learned panel in front of you here with a wide range of skills. We're going to answer the questions that you public have put to us and put to them, and they'll come out with some short, sharp answers with an eye on time. But first of all, I think Philip will give you we'll bowl the first ball to you, as it were, as you're new. The question is, what is the best lesson learned at SCAS, and which could be adopted at SECAmb? SCAS, as I should refer to, at SECAmb. So what good practice are you bringing to us? Is there any?
So there are a range of things that are different between the two trusts. But what I haven't come with is something that I'm saying, that's a magic bullet. But there are a couple of bits and pieces, such as how to get the best of our community first responders, and not only get the best out of them, but in order to cut down on the unnecessary conveyance of ambulances so we can keep the ambulances for the really important patients. I think that's probably one of the things that we can work on. We're already doing the thinking, and you've heard about some of those ideas already today. And the other thing is systems. So the one thing that SCAS did that we are less good at is to systemize everything. You saw, some of us have seen that the operational data is really quite good now, but then there's some other bits of our data services that aren't linked up. We don't link up our HR systems with our rostering systems, with our performance systems, so that we can really accurately get people to be at the right place at the right time, and that sort of thing. So I think those are that's the big ticket item.
Thanks very much indeed. Let's move on to the 111 contract. So the question is, what's happening with the 111 contract, and what is the reaction, for instance, of public being referred to a pharmacist or pharmacy? Perhaps Joe Fiona, you might be able to give a response to that.
So the 111 contract for us is a great opportunity for SECAmb to widen the service that we provide to all members of the population across the region. It allows us to really strengthen the interaction between both 111 colleagues and our 999 colleagues, and it provides us with a lot more resilience in that perspective. And I think the other factors around the clinical advice service will really enable us to strengthen the service, not only we provide to 111 providers, but also that interaction with 999 calls as well.
Thank you.
In terms of the use of pharmacists in 111, a significant number of the calls that come through 111 relate to patients' medication. So clearly having highly trained pharmacists is very useful and effective in dealing with those calls. Then, of course, referring patients to pharmacists within the community pharmacists are a huge resource, and to be able to utilise those individuals for minor illnesses and to point patients in the direction of either referral to their GP or to medications that they can buy over the counter and then allow them to be managed within the community, I think is a potential resource for us.
I just wonder if Felicity, anything you wanted to add as our public representative? I was expecting an ambulance and I got a pharmacist. What's your thoughts?
I'm sure whatever care was recommended be appropriate. That's the most important.
Okay, thank you indeed. Thank you. Next question is, how is the Trust future-proofing the workforce to combat the increasing market for paramedics in the wider health economy? I think, Joe, you might want to start with that.
So this is a really key factor and an important factor for us, because here at SECAmb we have been really fortunate that we have progressed the specialist practitioner roles, in particular critical care paramedic and paramedic practitioner, and that becomes a major attraction point for newly qualified paramedics when they enter the workforce, because what they can see is a future career path that can take them down specialist practice route, and they can then either, say, diversify down specialist practice or a management route. And that's quite important as an attraction. So what we're doing is making sure that as part of our targeted delivery model for the region, that we expand the role of the paramedic practitioner and we start to outpost those teams into some of the further to reach areas of the region, so that those teams, in conjunction with CFR colleagues, as you've recently seen in the video, are able to provide that wider reach for us whilst we wait for potentially any transporting resource to arrive. And that's a key factor in attracting new colleagues into our trust.
Thank you. I wonder, Alan, you manage staff on a day-to-day basis. I wonder if you had any thoughts on this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think moving forward, we are looking to integrate that specialist practice role even further. We have a huge number of operational team leaders who receive specialist training, and actually that's really attractive for the workforce. And moving forward with our PP hub led by our consultant paramedic colleagues, I think it's an exciting time to be a paramedic within a trust and still work on an ambulance seeing patients frontline.
Yeah, thank you. That's a really
and I would add as well that it's also about bringing in midwives, mental health practitioners, etc., to complement our paramedic workforce and use them where they can.
Yeah.
So I think we're taking a much more holistic view now.
Thanks, Lucy. That's really helpful. Thank you. Moving on to another question around values. And there might be a number of people might want to comment on this. And this reflects back a little bit onto some very past initiatives in the Trust as well. What is going to happen now to promote SECAmb values after such a successful start and the investment in time and money into cubes and cards? So thoughts on that? So Fiona, Joe, do you have a view?
I think, for me, I think the key thing about promoting values is how we promote the civility that everybody provides for each other on a daily basis. That's how we promote those values, and that's really comes from everybody has a responsibility to be civil to either our work colleagues, for our managers to be civil to our workforce, and we need to manage efficiently and robustly at times, but that can quite easily be done in a civil way. And that is the way to embed that cultural change to our organisation, is how everybody behaves with everybody else. We're looking to actually run a development programme which not just deals with those cultural elements, which is what we majored on in the first sort of attempt to deal with some of the major issues we've had, but how we can equip our first line leaders with the skills and drills necessary to deal with what can be challenging times in a workforce, but how to do that in the correct way to be to ensure that we don't go down the line of repeat some of the mistakes we may have done in the past.
I mean, Philip, you spoke with some passion in your address regarding values and what you expect of people. Is there anything you just wanted to bring out briefly?
Yeah, so Joe talked about our leadership training. It is up to the leaders, starting with me and my team and all the teams that flow down from there, to be living those values visibly and constantly, because it only takes one bad day, one bad half an hour, and you can put the whole the whole thing back by months and months, and waste a lot of the effort that's gone on. So it's about constancy, it's about living it, and it's about demanding it of everybody else in the team. And as Joe says, some of that compassionate leadership doesn't mean giving everybody an easy ride. It means getting everybody to be the best they possibly can be, giving them the room to be the best they can be, and when they start going off course, bringing them back on course. So it's just something that will be constant. It'll be in every bit of training that we do. We'll make sure that those come back, and every time that we have a performance discussion with each other, that should be done with those values in mind. Not only how have you done, but how have you done it?
You're nearest the front line of the panel here in terms of the service. The reaction in refers to cubes and cards, the various recognition schemes we've had. What's the sort of frontline staff feel about recognition schemes in general?
I think it's always wonderful to get recognised for the service you're doing, and the card's very much still in circulation. I think an awful lot of effort, fantastic effort went into the cubes and cards. They were very well received, but I see this as kind of entering a second stage where we're not using cube and cards to recognise. It's a bit more fundamental than that, and it's kind of embedded in everything we're doing. So I think it's more of an evolution than a reduction of cubes.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. A number of people on the panel could probably answer this. I think Joe, Rhiannon or Philip. What's the career pathways to joining the ambulance service? And who knows, out there might be some potential recruits. So, Joe, you said to me once, this is the best job in the world.
Absolutely, David. It is very much the best job in the world. I'm in my 34th year, so I'm sort of hooked, really. It becomes a way of life rather than a job. And the reason for that is that you are, as Philip mentioned in his opening address, you are loved by the public. And you come to work every day knowing that you're going to be tested, but you have no idea what you're going to be tested in. And that adds a degree of job satisfaction where you do face a problem, face a challenge, and you deal with that challenge in a positive way, and you can go home every day knowing that you've done meaningful work effectively. That's what kept me in this sector as long as it has, and trying to do the best for the colleagues out there doing the job on the front line is what it's all about.
Rhiannon, can you follow that?
Yeah, so going back to the question, how could you join the ambulance service? I was a graduate paramedic, so I went directly to university, did a 3-year degree and a placement with SCAS, and then moved promptly to SECAmb, and became a paramedic that way. But there are a number of roles, and it's actually a really good time to join us directly. So our ECSW, Row Emergency Care Support Worker, so joining as a support to a senior clinician and working your way through the service to a paramedic, CDP, PP role. But there are a number of different ways to do it. I don't know if we've got any clinical education colleagues in the room, but they'd be really helpful to speak if anyone is interested.
Chad, I think it's one of the few careers you can generally measure, come to a junior level and have a realistic proposition getting to the top. Philip, final comments?
I just want a very, very quick story, if I may. So when I was talking to you earlier about my history, I gave you a list of some quite senior jobs that I'd done and that I was really quite proud of. My children had seen me in those roles. Indeed, my daughter was got to play Princess Anne during the Olympic rehearsals and sat beside Lord Coe as he wrote his closing speech. So she knew that I operated at a level. And when I sat the family down and said, listen, I'm going to take a bit of a pay cut and join the ambulance service, her response was amazing. She said, do you know what, for the first time in my life, I'm going to be really proud to tell everybody what my dad does.
There you go. Could be better than that. Nice story.
The next day, she saw me putting on a suit, and she said, what, you're a suit? She changed her mind. She's proud of the boys and girls in green, not me.
Lovely. We need to keep an eye on the time, but there's still one or two very, very questions here. SECAmb is aspiring to be outstanding at its next CQC review. From a patient's perspective, calling 999 or 111 in 2022, how will my care be different? Now then, Felicity, as a member of the public, do you have a view? You know, you ring us in 2022. What are you looking for?
I think as a member of the public, actually, I don't mind, as long as I've got a number to ring and someone's going to help me and deliver me the right care at the right time with the right person. Actually, what goes on behind the scenes and how it all works out, I don't really mind. I think that's the fundamental. When you ring that number, whether it's a life-threatening emergency or you're feeling unwell or you're concerned, it's just being directed, because I think the health service delivery is very complicated and very difficult for general public to understand. You just want a number to ring and to get the right help.
Yeah. Fiona, you've been a clinician and you've led ambulance services. In terms of using your past experience looking forward, what would you expect? If you phone the ambulance service in 2 years' time, what would you be thinking you'd hope we'd offer?
So I think it starts with either the response to a 111 call or response to a 999 call, and it's got to be really quick. So picking up the phone quickly, because until we know what's going on, we don't know what sort of response is required for that patient. I think it also gives the public, the person who's ringing, immense confidence if the phone is picked up quickly, because they feel that they're in touch with somebody who will be able to direct them to the right service. I think going forward, having a seamless offering running from referring people to primary care within their area to different locations, be it an urgent treatment centre, a minor injuries unit, or an emergency department, or being able to mobilise a very skilled clinician, whether it's somebody in a double-crewed ambulance or one of our specialist paramedics, that can see the patient and provide the most appropriate care and triage that patient in the most appropriate way, whether it's sending them to a specialist centre, a major trauma centre, stroke centre, a PCI centre, or referring them back into the community, remembering that for many of our patients, spending time in hospital, particularly for the older patients in the community, does not benefit them.
Lucy, you've been a long-standing board member. You've been part of SECAmb's journey of improvement, lived and breathed the issues here over a long period of time. Your vision for 2022 of you or your family phone 999.
I wonder if we'll be phoning or whether we'll have actually other ways of contacting us by then. I think we're uniquely placed as a gateway into the NHS. And I think we do an awful lot to be there when our patients need us. But I think in 2022 we will be there even more than we are today through those different pathways.
Yeah, no, well said. That's absolutely very well made point. Again, really important. One question I do want to make sure we cover today, and this is actually addressed to the Chief Executive. So, Philip, this is yours. The Inclusion Hub Advisory Group recommended 3 years ago the equality objective should be to ensure that SECAmb staff were representative of the population we serve. Now that you chair the Inclusion Working Group, what is the one thing you can do to make substantial progress towards realising this important equality objective? It's a challenge, one that we've got to rise to.
Yeah, it is a really difficult area, this, because, and that's why I've decided to lead it myself, because it's one of those areas that everybody knows is important, but sometimes it doesn't get to the top of the workplace every day. So it is going to take personal leadership on my behalf, and that's what I'm committing to the group that I'm going to do. We've been sitting on some objectives for a couple of years now at least, and haven't delivered many of them. That will change.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Just to look at time for one more question. Yeah. Yes, go for it. Yeah, okay. I think Fiona, Philip, maybe others might want to come in on this. What's the plans going forward to continue to support staff well-being actively, and will these include addressing the work-life balance? So perhaps start with Chief Executive, maybe Joe actually to bring this in as well, in terms of how we can improve our workplace to make sure that our staff, we be more aware of our staff's needs.
I think this is a really important position, really, because we work in a sector that requires round-the-clock working, and that provides challenges. So we need an appropriate number of staff on duty around the clock. The only way we're going to be able to, or one of the ways we can improve that, is to potentially look at more part-time working. As the pension age increases, we need to consider the roles that we have, and how can we perhaps both break down some of the roles we've got in the form of how we approach our rostering to ensure that there are opportunities potentially for people to step down. How can we, as an organisation, actively secure additional contracts, such as winning back some of our PTS contracts, to offer opportunities for, again, staff to potentially step down. So it's really looking at what we do, recognising we have to provide around-the-clock service, but how can we do that as flexibly as possible, accepting that, we still have to have people on nights and weekends all the time.
Perhaps you lead staff every day. You've got to rearrange their rotas. You've got to deal with their various things they have to face up to in their lives. Any insight you to bring in this area?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, so I lead the East Sussex operating unit, so Polegate and Hastings. Thank you very much. I'll pay you later. And we have been given the opportunity by Joe to improve things for our staff, as long as we could prove that it worked, and as long as we could prove it was cost effective, because it is taxpayers' money we're using. So we had a very high proportion of staff suffering from stress and anxiety. It was quite a significant problem, and it was quite localised to Polegate and Hastings. We have to remember that these staff, they're human beings, and some of the things they see over and over again are really things we wouldn't like to see on our very worst day. So we had an idea, and actually the idea came from the lady who just whooped me at the back, Caroline, and she said, look, we've got mental health practitioners available throughout the trust, and they're very busy, but they're absolutely brilliant. It's working really, really well, so we've got a real problem here. Could we have somebody here dedicated for our staff? And that was a trial that we had to evidence, and we had to prove to Joe that it would be possibly effective, and that we would evaluate it effectively. And it's a trial we started, and just on this side of the audience, although she'll be horrified I've pointed her out, is the lovely Rachel, our dedicated mental health practitioner. Now, Rachel is Monday to Friday dedicated to our staff, so she is a resource for our staff to access mental health support. It is more a proactive step than a reactive step. These are people who see things and hear things and respond to things, and actually we need to be really reactive with their care. Sorry, Rachel, proactive with their care, not reactive with their care. Everything you've taught me, and I've learned nothing. Sorry, I know. So in terms of managing staff, as Joe said, unfortunately we can't have everybody working days. We still have to cover nights and weekends. But it's about looking after the people that do that. And where we recognise a problem, we have the support to put in facilities to recognise that problem and address it. And I think I'm just talking about the mental health practitioner trial because it was ours, something we lived and breathed, something we developed. In a local way, there are those trials in multiple OUs, and probably almost every OU, Joe. There is something for staff well-being, and it's something that we are pushing forward with. We're not there yet, but it's something we're making real strides with.
Yeah. Fiona, do you want to make a final comment?
So I think there is something about looking at the way we recruit our staff to make sure that we do recruit people who have got a degree of inbuilt resilience, because emergency services or the health service does tend to attract people who feel that they absolutely want to help others, but sometimes they feel that they will help themselves by helping others, and sometimes that can put them in a difficult position. So I think we need to make sure that we recruit the right people for the service. We've already talked a bit about the support we give our staff, and I absolutely agree with Rhiannon around supporting staff through mental health. The other big area, of course, is musculoskeletal issues, and perhaps being more proactive. We've got one physiotherapist, she's about to go on maternity leave, we're recruiting another, but as well as having one in East and one in West, to have them with a bit of extra time so that they can help to be proactive and perhaps prevent some of the musculoskeletal injuries that our staff get. And then finally, and positively not very popular thing to say, I think we need to look at shift length, because I know that to reduce the average shift length of 12 hours, and as somebody pointed out, it's often more than 12 hours, to either 8 or 10 hours would be deeply unpopular with many of our staff. But actually, I think it might be the right thing to do, because how many of you, other than people in green who already work 12 hours, would want to work 12 or 13 hours and maybe 3 or 4 shifts on the bounce? I don't think many of you would be at your best on your 3rd or 4th shift. I'm not sure it's great for our staff, and I'm not sure it's necessarily great for our patients.
Thank you very much indeed. Look, just at the panel, just throw in there just for a moment as we bring the meeting to a close. Thank you very much to the panel, actually. That's, I mean, we'd be here all evening, I think, in terms of listening to the responses, and what comes over is the enthusiasm, of the team, whether you're a non-executive director, whether you're a full-time leader, the enthusiasm is there and the caring is there, and they represent you, the staff who are here, and also their passion for patients comes shining through. So thank you very much indeed for what you've done and your answers. Just to ask people here today that we have an evaluation form. We'd like to continually improve. We hope to be back in another venue next year. So want your evaluation, please. There's collection boxes around for that. Can I thank staff and partners for showcasing their work today? It really is phenomenal. It's really a joyful occasion to be here, to see the enthusiasm of everybody. Thank you again. Can I thank the corporate governance team for organising the event, and particularly can I thank Katie. And Katie has actually done all the organising of today. So Katie, your public wishes to give you a round of applause. And as Katie reminds me, don't forget the cake. Because those of you who have learned CPR with our first responders will have given a raffle ticket to win a fantastic defibrillator cake. It goes up and down on its own. Can I ask some of our some of our community first responders to come and draw a winner and hand over the cake? So just come forward with the raffle ticket, and someone goes home with a splendid cake. Right, the excitement's mounting here. Come on. Right. Okay. Right, do you want to view this? Go on, Faith, you draw the raffle.
Do you want to take the umbrella off? Just close my eyes. Okie dokie. All right, so we have a green ticket, number 8. Nobody? None.
Come on, don't be shy. It looks delicious.
Have they left? How rude.
Oh, we could be here all night now.
Redraw. Oh no, it's another green one. Number 3. Hey, woo! There you go, well done. There is a box, you don't have to take it like that.
Well done. I'm sure you'll have some new friend now. Well done. And finally, can I thank everybody for coming today. I hope you'll agree it's been a fantastic afternoon, really informative. Can I, as well including, just thank all of our staff and all of our partners for the work you do and the collaboration and the way we do work together. This is it's been the last 12 months for me. It's been an absolute joy in terms of the team spirit. The NHS has been through some tough times in recent years, and I think relationships have been strained. But I have to say, when you work in this organisation, it restores your faith, and the wider ambulance community as well, which I've had the privilege to interact with across the country, as was referred to earlier. It's been an absolute privilege to be involved in. So thank you for what you do. Do enjoy the rest of the exhibition. The people around, please meet our staff and find out what's going on, and have a safe journey home. And thank you for coming. Thank you.